Today, on the 21st episode of the DTFprinting podcast, we're discussing what it's like to be a third-generation female owner of a print shop, the significance of attending industry events and building a community, and how to find the right vendor for DTF transfers. Welcome to the DTFprinting podcast. I'm Adrienne Palmer, Editor-in-Chief of DTFprinting. Before we get into this episode, I would love to get your feedback. You can always email me at adrienne@dtfprinting.com for topic ideas and speaker suggestions. And don't forget to like, review, and subscribe. If this is your first time listening, be sure to check out all episodes at dtfprinting.com/podcast. On today's episode, I'm talking to Megan Griffith, Art and Operations Director and co-owner of P&M Apparel in Polk City, Iowa. Hey, Megan, it's great to see you.
You too.
Thanks for joining the DTFprinting podcast. So why don't we start with getting into your background? I'd love for you to tell our listeners how you got your start in the apparel industry and your connection to P&M Apparel.
So I would say I started really as a kid because P&M Apparel, P&M stands for Phyllis and Melvin, and that's my grandparent. So they started the whole business in 1987. When in their basement was just like two heads of embroidery. So it has grown from there, changed a couple locations. My mom took it over 10 to 20 years ago. And then my brother and I actually just took it over about a year ago. So I've literally grown up in the industry. I've done just about every job in the decorated apparel industry you could think of. So that's my start is literally from childhood up.
I love that. It's kind of funny, the print industry is filled with so many people of different generations getting into this. And there's been a little bit of a conversation lately of maybe people, the younger generation, they don't really want to get into the family business. But I'm a little bit similar to you in a sense where I grew up going to the Dayton Daily newspaper. That's where my dad worked. He was in the art department there. And then I went to school for journalism. Yeah. And, it's like I was ingrained in that, world. And I loved it so much. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And well, here we are today. But yeah, I kind of maybe talk a little bit about that kind of thought process of either I can get into something completely different or I've enjoyed this so much. Why would I want to leave it?
Yeah, I don't think I had any interest in getting into the family business at all. I went to school for graphic design and for journalism. And I felt like it was small fries. I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted to be like this big wig art director in New York or something like that. But then I started getting into that career and getting into the environment and realized that there's not a lot of room for creativity considering it's a creative field. And so after a few jobs that just were really, not as exciting and wonderful as I expected it to be, my mom had a position open where she's like, I really could use a graphic designer. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do this until I find what I really want to be doing. And that was 13 years ago. And I think I found it because I have so much more creativity because I don't have 20 people nitpicking every single little thing that I do. I can just like let everything, out the way that I want to see it as an artist. But then as I continued to grow in the business, I realized that I've got a lot more skills in management and leadership than I expected. So yeah, both my brother and I had no interest in joining the family business. And now it feels like there's a lot of pressure because it's like, cool to do 2 generations family owned, but I feel like 3 generations is like, no, this is a real thing that's happening. It's not just like a coincidence that somebody got into it. It's like now there's a lot more momentum coming, especially for the 4th generation. I feel bad for our kids having all that pressure, So.
Right. And yeah, what is it like working in a family business? I kind of always ask this question, like, do you turn it off? At a certain point on our Sunday dinners, we don't talk about business at all or, vacation, like we're taking a vacation or kind of is it always part of everyday conversation?
I mean, whether you're in a family business or not, in this industry, you go on vacation, you're going through the gift shop and you're touching and feeling the shirts and trying to see how they decorated it or how much they're charging or whatever. So I don't think that ever turns off. And yeah, I think that the stress levels of like, okay, now I get to go on Christmas break or something like that and don't have to think about work for a week. Well, when your family is the one that you're going to and the one you're working with, there's no like nice break away. I think we have tried to establish some pretty decent boundaries. But honestly, my brother and I especially will get off work, and then by 6-7 o'clock, we're texting each other ideas and kind of brainstorming some things, doing more work on the business since we're so busy in the business on the day to day.
Does that ever feel like there might be potential for burnout, or are you enjoying it so much that it's okay to have those conversations after technical work hours?
Ryan and I joke that we usually schedule our like panic attacks at 3 a.m. And so that's when we can just, fit them in and make sure the burnout happens down the road when it doesn't interfere with deadline. But yeah,
3 a.m. panic attacks. I think we can all understand those a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, I think like Ryan is a lot better at the self-care and the managing boundaries and stuff than I am. So he's the one I usually depend on for that stuff. It's like, hey, Megan, have you eaten today? Have you drank any water today? He's the one that's kind of doing those, like making sure everybody is not hitting burnout, making sure they're not destroying themselves, because I'm not great at that at all. I need him to help me balance that out.
It's nice to have a good counterpart who you can trust,
Absolutely.
On the mental health side of the business, because there's so much surrounding that as well. But also on the actual business side, being able to be creative and have that conversation with your brother. And I'm sure your family, the older generations, are happy to see this, but do you find them ever kind of now saying, oh, well, we did it this way, you guys should do it this way? Or are they open to potential change and new ideas?
I think my grandparents, they're no longer with us, but when they just were so thrilled, because in their wildest dreams, they were like, if I can make $300 a week, then I'm golden. And so to come into, we now have this like 8,000 square foot facility and all these employees and everything, their minds were just blown. I think my mom, when we first started in like more management roles and starting the process of transitioning, I think she was like, you have to do things XYZ. And Ryan and I kind of pushed back and we're like, that's not how we want to run this business. And I think at first she really struggled. But now she's starting to see like, oh, there's more than one way to do this. And she's starting to see the fruits of why we are making the decisions that we were making.
Can you think of any specific examples of maybe if that's a process that you were using, or maybe ways you were working with customers, or even hiring?
Yeah, it's almost everything. It's like, I think there's a lot of generational differences there of how businesses were run, even just pre-COVID, and now we've got a lot more people that are thinking about where they want to work and how they want to work, how they want to be spending their time, how much their time is worth to them. And, it's not just as easy as punching a ticket and checking in and out for the day. It's like they want to have a quality and a care about their work. And so the way that you have to manage in general is completely different. I think it was easier for previous generations to just like rule with an iron fist, or to have a lot of fear every time they walked into a room because you're afraid you might get fired or something like that. And there's so much more relationship now between the manager and the employee, and you've got to be willing to do more giving and taking instead of just all these strict demands. So I would say that's a huge change that we've done. We really invest a lot of time and money and care and concern into our employees, instead of just expecting them to just do whatever we say without question. It's like, no, I want to use your brain and work together and come up with ideas that grow this whole business. I hired you because you have something to bring to the table that I don't already have. and really trying to utilize those skill sets instead of just saying this is the only way to do your job.
I always think kind of back to when I worked on the wide format side. Brian Adam, he's an owner of Olympus Group, and he always said that, you know, he didn't really like the term like, oh, we're a family at work. He said, you know, at my family, we're all equal, you know, but in work, we're a team because they're different. You know, some people are exceeding and they're going to get a raise or et cetera. But I always think back to, well, what if you are in a family business? So you technically are both. I mean, how would you consider your team members, especially now as this third generation owner, where it is you and your brother who are a family, but I'm assuming most of your team members are not.
Right. So we both hate when companies are like, oh, we treat you like family, because more often than not, they're not treating you like family. It's like, if that's what your family looks like, I don't want to be part of that family at all, because it's like, your family is not expendable. Your family is not just like completely replaceable, all of that. So it always drove me crazy. But at the same time, I don't want to treat you like a big corporate conglomerate either. And so I think we try to treat everyone the way that we treat each other. Which is not just like, oh yeah, we're the most caring and concerned bosses ever. It's like, no, it means that we are fallible. We're going to make a lot of mistakes, and we're going to need grace and forgiveness, and we're going to give you grace and forgiveness. And, you know, we lead right from the interview that, hey, there's going to be tension. There's going to be arguments. You know, you're going to care about what you're doing, and somebody else is going to care about what you're doing, and it might look, the result is different. So we've got to communicate, and we've got to work through that stuff. I also, you know, my main priority when thinking about pricing and what kind of profits we're making is never about like, if I can get a yacht or something like that. It's making sure I can put food on my employees' tables and make sure that the families that are depending on this business are taken care of. And that's priority number one. I think you see that in a lot of ways, our team is always supporting each other. Last weekend, a huge group of them all went and saw Inside Out 2. They're coming to my kids' birthday parties. We're going to, you know, if somebody's in a band or has an art show or something like that, we're all like going to each other's things and supporting each other. And so I don't think you can cultivate some kind of culture like that by just saying, hey, we treat you like family here. You've got to prove it in your words and your actions and everything in between.
Right. It's great that you have that support, but I do hope you can get that yacht.
I don't even know what I would do with a yacht.
Your friend Adrian really loves yacht life, so you know.
Deal. I'll get a yacht. You'll come to Iowa where there's like a couple lakes that are, you know, okay at best.
Right. I mean, perfect. It sounds like a solid plan. Okay, so you mentioned, you know, when your grandparents started this, they were brought in embroidery, and that was kind of the start of the business. What does P&M Apparel look like today?
So today, we've got 17 employees. We have, I'm trying to calculate because we're bringing in embroidery head like today. So I think we've got 8 heads of embroidery, and we've got 2 automatic presses, a manual press, and then a whole area devoted to like DTF that's got a hat press and heat presses and all of that stuff.
Very cool. So currently DTF, the way that it fits into your business, you are purchasing transfers from an outside vendor, bringing those in, and then heat pressing on site with what you just said, the hat press and the heat press, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So right now we're using, I feel like the DTF game right now is very much finding who can deliver on the best service and the best quality. We tried out probably a dozen different DTF places, and I would say the one that works really well for us is Limitless Transfers. And so we've been using them like crazy. We have looked into things like, hey, should we just get our own DTF? And it just feels like it doesn't work for our model right now. it seems really cool, the people that are doing that and are really evolving with DTF. But for us, it seems like it's still easier to just be like, here, you're the expert, you do this and make sure it looks all right. And it still works within our profit margins.
Absolutely. I've said this a million times, but, there are 3 ways that you can be in the DTF space right now. And that's, diving all in, having equipment, in-house, or you can order transfers like you're doing and heat press them yourselves, or you can just outsource everything,
Right.
and just have that as an offering on your site and, in your store. But, with you in this section, how did you go about all of the troubleshooting? How did you decide that, this is the vendor we're going to use? What factors were part of that decision?
So one of the biggest factors for us was color, because some of our local schools their colors are red, like red and black and white. And so red is like critical. And I feel like there are a lot of companies that they can't quite lock in red. Either it goes to orange or it goes to blue. And so that was something we were really searching for and struggling to find somebody that had a true red. With Limitless, he not only sent us here's all of the color palettes, he also explained all of the science behind how he's mixing colors and how he's locking in those colors and what we need to do to be really successful for that too. So that was a big thing, but also the feel of the shirt. I didn't want it to feel plasticky. I didn't want to have a big ring of white around it or anything like that. It had to still be as good of quality as screen printing.
Right. And what about turnaround time? Was that part of the factor? I mean, it seems
Totally.
like he's very good with customer service already. He's actually
Absolutely.
explaining, educating, getting you different samples. But what's the turnaround time, and how does that affect, your customer base too?
Yeah. So as a general rule, our turnaround time is usually about 8 to 10 business days. We have capabilities to do some print on demand or expedited turnaround times, but that's what we usually say. And so that works well within the range. He usually is shipping things out. Like if you ship it out by noon, I think Eastern time, he's got it to you next day. Otherwise it's 2 days. So we can, even if we make a mistake in sending our order over, it's still coming well within our time frame. But we're also, if we are doing expedited stuff, we've got several corporate clients that are looking for every week they're producing new stuff. Those we just usually try to stock up on that stuff so that it's here and we don't have to worry about any kind of rushing.
Are your customers part of this conversation at all? Do they know the difference, or are you making that decision internally and they're getting it as they should in terms of screen printing versus DTF?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the client, and we really depend on our account managers to navigate that level of communication. Because every time I go to a conference, I'm told hey, nobody knows the difference. Nobody knows the difference between DTF and screen printing, and I'm not finding that to be true. I'm finding I have some clients that absolutely know the difference and absolutely want it to either be screen printed or DTF. There's no leaning one way or the other. It's just they're particular. We really pride ourselves in making sure that we are serving our clients with white glove service and high quality, high touch, high communication. So that's something that we try to kind of feel out on the front end and make sure that they're getting the product they want. Sometimes if they're asking for something that's hyper photorealistic or something, we will work on that education piece and teach them how to discern the difference and what the end product might look like. But really, yeah, we're kind of determining a lot of that on our end and then helping coach the client along the way.
Right. Yeah, I think the best answer for that is it always depends. I have heard a lot of people say, we don't communicate that with the client or the customer, or maybe they don't really care. But there are a lot of customers who do and want to really be involved in the process, may even want to get a tour of your facility to see how the printing is done, or have even done their own research to say, this feel is important to me, or this type of quality. So I think it's great that you have that relationship with your customers. And I'm sure that helps with customer retention, that they feel like they are having that white glove service with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got, most of my team, especially on the production side, comes from some kind of art background. And so they really want to be able to communicate the difference too. My graphic design team wants to be able to do something really crazy that only DTF can do, or my screen printing team wants to be able to show off, how they can do their color mixing and how they can print a really high quality product. So I think it works all the way down of making sure your whole team and your client and everybody is just really satisfied with the product that goes out the door.
Right. And with your art and graphic design background, what are your thoughts on the artwork of it all in terms of screen printing versus DTF?
I think when DTF came out, initially I was kind of really skeptical because I had already seen DTG come out and that I wasn't super impressed with. Now that was, I think, like 15 years ago that my mom had purchased a DTG machine and it ended up being just a hunk of junk that she ended up throwing out. And that was because she bought one of the first models when it first came out. Now, I know a lot of people that are really successful with DTG and they do a great job, but I still just was really skeptical that that's what was about to happen, was like another DTG experience, and it was never going to replace screen printing. Now I'm starting to see a lot more advantages, and being able to have both is really critical. And so it's like, yeah, there are certain things I can do with art that I can't do with screen printing, and vice versa. And so it just gives you a lot more opportunity to really fill in whatever the client might need and really hit that perfect solution.
Right. And you mentioned, DTF, bringing that in-house right now doesn't look like part of the game plan. But what are your thoughts about DTF, in the future of it, I guess I should say, in this industry, maybe not necessarily for your business in the next couple years or maybe even ever, but maybe in the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Every time I go to, a conference or a show or something, I'm constantly sitting there picking everybody's brains that I can until I can't talk anymore. And so it's been really cool to learn what some people are doing with DTF. I've heard about people taking their auto press and retrofitting it to become a giant heat press machine using Stampedators as heat presses just along the line. And I think that's really cool. I've heard about people that are replacing all their screen printing equipment and just lining up 20 heat presses, and they're doing complete on-demand stuff, and they're turning things within 48 hours or 24 hours. And that's really cool to hear too. I think you have to be able to respond to technology and understand your niche. And I'm really excited to see that there are plenty of places for everybody to be, basically. I think the pessimist would say, oh, DTF is going to destroy screen printing and that's going to be all that there is. And I don't think that that's real. I think the most successful people are going to be people that just figure out what works best for wherever they are, and really, nail down what they need to be doing. It's about figuring out what works best for those people and what works best for their clients. And so it's really exciting to see, how people are integrating things, how people are developing things overseas, creating new technologies that are going into DTF. I just think it's going to be an evolution of the industry. I think a lot of people are looking at DTF as all of these Cricut moms are doing all of this stuff, and there's a place for them. But I think DTF is definitely finding a place in its whole commercial avenue too, that is going to be really interesting, exciting, and I'm just excited to move along with the industry and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so fascinated by all of the different tweaks and technology that's happening actually within print shops. You kind of think maybe a little bit, outside of the industry, oh, these people are just buying machines and, they work for their project and it's over.
Right.
It's like there are so many different companies that are, and I have to say the last couple of podcasts actually that I've recorded with people that are really calling themselves technology companies or doing manufacturing in-house, tinkering with products, creating things that work for them, not just on the software side, but on the actual equipment side. And I just find that so cool about this industry is that everyone's really trying to figure out and nail down what works best for them. And if that's completely even tearing apart a machine and, doing something that works for them, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I think the thing we're going to keep seeing, partially because of DTF, but also the industry as a whole, is technology is a huge component, like you're saying. I mean, you see everybody talking about AI, you see them talking about sustainability. Everything is leaning more towards like changing the whole industry. You can't do the same thing you were doing in the 90s and the 2000s. Things have to improve and progress. I think, Ryan, even 5 years ago, we weren't really up with the technology, and Ryan has really felt that the investment in technology and education and going to these conferences or going and finding education and growing in all these areas is really important. And I think that is just totally changing our business. And I think that's the way everybody's business kind of needs to evolve. Like, you have to keep striving to do better and evolving, or else you're going to, kind of run yourself out of business next to all of the people that are trying to do new things constantly.
Right. Yeah. You and I met, I think it was in Print Hustlers Fort Worth is where we met for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
and then, reconnected again last year in Newport Beach. And so, I see you at events. You just mentioned, Ryan was like, we have to go to these. And you actually just hosted FlyoverCon at P&M Apparel. So obviously education is so important to you. Why is that so much so that you started your own conference? I really want to hear about FlyoverCon. I'm so sad that I missed it this year, but I will be there next year for sure.
Oh, you were there in spirit for sure.
Yes, I was. Yeah. For those listening, I wasn't able to make it. I had previous engagement for a different industry event. I think there were like 3 or 4 industry events that weekend, which again is just so exciting for the apparel industry, especially because each one seemed very regional, so that people could go, to whatever made sense to them in terms of, transportation, travel. But Megan and Ryan were so gracious to give me a few video slots. I was able to speak about DTFprinting and what we do here, and then also speak about Unite Together, which is the diversity and inclusion board that I'm on. So thank you that even though I wasn't there virtually, I was.
Yeah. So we go to these conferences and we've made so many friends, and all of our friends, they want to talk shop while we're at the conference, and then they want to go get dinner and talk shop and go get drinks and talk shop. And we're sitting there just nerding out about screen printing or embroidery or DTF or whatever, until the wee hours of the morning. And it's like, you get so much and you come back invigorated and you want to be like, here's all these things we're going to change and here's how we're going to improve. But we're noticing, like, as many friendships and relationships as we're making across the country, we get back to Iowa and it's like all doors are closed. There is no camaraderie. We're hearing about, people in other parts of the country that are like, oh yeah, this is my buddy shop and we, share ink if we need to, or we help each other out whenever we need to. And that doesn't happen in Iowa at all. And a lot of the Midwest in general, it's very like competition based, and I can't help you because, if I help you, then you're taking money out of my pocket. And I think we just kind of were like, I don't think that's real. I think, like, if you think about how many shirts are in an average person's dresser, Like, I think there's enough room for all of us to exist and to help each other up and just like raise the tide so that we all go up together. And so that was something we wanted to try to bring a piece of everything that we were learning from all these other states and bring it to our state, and give opportunities to just like make some of the relationships here at home. So, that was a big goal for us. And because we had created these relationships, we could reach out to a lot of those friends like you and say, hey, give us some of your education that we can show these people. And it was great. We had a lot of great sponsors. Anatol was our lead sponsor. And so they helped, bring any of the funding that we needed. We were able to do the whole conference for free. And it also covered things like food. We were able to pay for all the food. We did a happy hour, the whole works. And the coolest part was everybody that came to this conference was like, I've never been to anything like this before. I've learned more in the last hour than I have in years. We had one shop that was like, I got here 20 minutes ago and I already solved 4 problems for my shop, which is exactly what we wanted to do. It's just like trying to facilitate that sense of community right here at home. And of course, calling it Flyover Con because we're one of the flyover states. So trying to, some of these states that probably don't always get the attention is like California or, someone on the East Coast, like just trying to bring them some of this knowledge that we've gotten over the years.
Absolutely. Well, kudos to you for launching it and having a successful first year. It's so amazing to hear when people say, I learned so much. Even for me, going to a conference, taking one nugget of information that you can actually turn into something when you get back is paramount. I mean, totally. Just because you also, you take all these notes, you get overwhelmed. But when people are saying like, I've already learned 4 different things, or, I can implement this right away, that's huge. So congratulations.
Yeah, it was really cool. So, and Ryan's already talking about what to do next time and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need a nap. Okay.
I know. It's like you host an event and then you're like, can I have weeks of vacation? Yeah, because my brain's not functioning. But then you start to realize like, okay, you got to start planning for the next one, and that excitement builds. And even with, DTF Expo, we had the first one this year in Arizona. I was running the education sessions and people were seated. They wanted to learn. They were like, I'm here today and tomorrow. Awesome. I'm not leaving this room. And that, I think, is what is so exciting about not just the apparel industry, but probably the DTF side. It's so new. So people are clamoring for information. And that's, what's important with DTF printing is, we want to be a really tried and true resource for people. But it's like everyone just wants to learn. And, you kind of mentioned it. Typically, when you go to these bigger shows, people are very warm and welcoming and wanting to share everything they can. But it's interesting that when you get back home, everyone's a little bit, not so sure. But you think now with FlyOverCon that changed a little bit? People are more willing to have that community and that camaraderie, even if maybe you're considered competition?
Yeah, I think it's easier when it's the people that are a little bit farther away from us. Like, I don't know that anyone within half an hour of us even came, even though we could go to their door and be like, please, we're not trying to be competitive here. We're literally opening our doors where you can see the boxes that have our client names and see our processes and everything. We're really trying to be open-handed here, but that kind of thing takes time. So I'm hoping to see that grow even more. I think we developed some good relationships with people, especially the smaller screen printers that are just starting off. So that worked really well, and I hope to continue to encourage that and see that grow. I guess we're just going to have to keep doing it and keep trying to facilitate this conversation and this kind of, camaraderie mindset.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so important for other shops to go into other shops. I think it was actually Print Hustlers the year we met in Fort Worth. I was at Trust Print Shop,
Okay.
And there were a few different decorators that had never been into another shop before. And they were just, like clamoring at everything. They just couldn't believe it. They were taking notes and videos and so excited, to be, seeing something else, especially maybe something that they would be working toward if they were a
Right.
smaller business. And so I think that's so important for people to go in. And if they have the opportunity to walk through a different shop, maybe not everything will be applicable to you, but you can get new ideas and find, what will work best at your shop, and also get some motivation to do something different.
Yeah. I think people like to think that their competitor is the person that's like on the same level as them. But really, we're not competing so much against each other. We're competing against like Custom Ink or like Amazon or, like these giant machines that have giant warehouses that are printing stuff so fast. So that's who we're really competing with. And I think if you can get it feels almost like Willy Wonka, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, we get to see behind the curtain. We get to see somebody else's shop. But it's so every time I go into somebody's shop, I totally nerd out. And I want that to happen at our shop too. I want people to be like, this is really cool. These are things I'm taking away, because that's what I'm doing when I go to other people's shops. And yeah, because we're not really competing against each other. We're competing against the big wigs that are trying to sell a shirt for $2, where they're not trying to pay their employees well, or trying to, take care of food on tables. So we're just trying to, get a piece of that business, not so much each other's.
Right. And that is such a big conversation, with customers, or maybe people who are just kind of, buying a one-off, which is what DTF is helpful for now.
Yeah.
But, just sometimes like, oh, I'm just having this party this weekend. I just need a couple shirts. I'm just going to go online, blah, 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 blah. But it's that cultivating that relationship. Do you know if you've lost any customers to some of those big mega online stores? And if so, have you been able to kind of communicate with them the importance of working with someone local or smaller, and what that quality will look like and that relationship will look like?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of specific examples. A lot of times you can kind of tell if the people are just price shopping, but even if they're price shopping, they're still typically looking for local. And so they're probably just going to another shop in the area. So I'm not seeing a lot of customers that come to us and then like leave to go to Amazon or some big corporate entity. But I don't know. Because it's hard to measure when it's like, well, who knows how much business I could be getting. We do have a couple clients that there's like some big companies that claim to be local, but they're actually a big national company. And so we try to really push like, hey, it's our taxes that are helping, fund your school district, or it's like us that you're coming to ask to sponsor a little league or something like that, and really kind of encourage that local business community. And we also try to do that in kind too. If we have some kind of, our cleaning services or whatever, any kind of vendor relationship, we try to keep that as local as we possibly can to really even just set the example of what we want our clients to be seeing too.
Right. And I mean, kind of speaking about online stores, but in a different capacity, you offer online stores on your website. So when did you start offering these? Maybe talk a little bit about that process. And are you typically using DTF for those prints, or does it really depend, I guess, what the store looks like?
Yeah. So we started doing online stores. I think I had only been working here about a year, so probably 11, 12 years ago. And it would take me a whole day to set up one online store. And so we would try to figure out ways to charge for that or whatever. Now there are a lot of really great platforms out there that make it a lot faster. So we, at any given point, probably have about 40 online stores running. We usually do one of two channels. We either have like a more corporate client that has a store that's running full time all the time, and we just close it out and fulfill it like once a week. Or we will have these shorter campaigns that are typically 2 weeks, or if it's like a state tournament or something like that, we run it for shorter. And then we produce those after that store is closed. So in the first channel and the always open, we depend on DTF a lot because we don't know if you're going to print one piece or you're going to print 300 pieces. So we just say, okay, we're going to plan on DTFing all of this. Is DTFing a verb now?
It is now.
Sure. So we kind of tend to push that direction. And it also works really well for a lot of the products that we're selling, because those are usually like really high-end polos and stuff that either you're embroidering it, or if you're wanting less of that embroidered look, something a little bit sleeker, then DTF is a great decoration method. So that's what we're utilizing in that avenue. And then in the shorter campaigns, we do it a lot for stores that we know it's like a little link, and we know at most you're going to have 20 orders. They might buy 5 different things, but they really want a very custom experience. So that we utilize DTF to be able to say, here, yeah, we can have 5 different imprints, or we can have 5 different arts, and no one will bat an eye at screen charges or anything like that, because they won't exist. So it becomes a really economical choice, and it gives a lot more versatility for those really custom clients.
Right. Just think on the customer side, how much that has changed. I mean, I look back at, maybe a grade school. I think of specifically of this one shirt that we got after a grade school trip to Washington, D.C. or Chicago. And, I had to wear uniform to school. Mm-hmm. So after the trip, we were allowed to wear that one shirt. But it was, just 2-color, awful design, like an XL as like a, little kid. Right. It's just like, but, you're so excited to wear it because you can go outside of your uniform. But it's like today, the options for these kids in school or sports, it's really cool because you can really tailor and give options that fit everyone's interests. Mm-hmm. And that versatility, I think, is just really cool. And I'm sure you feel that way too on the design side.
Yeah, we've been using Chipley as our platform, highly recommend. But they are saying, hey, you should be having like 35 to 50 products in your store, which really kind of blew my mind, because I was like, no, let's limit it to like 8 products. We could put a hoodie, a crew, a t-shirt, the basic stuff. But then when you start thinking about, 35 to 50 products, and you're seeing people that are having astronomical sales increases just by having those additional products, because now I can put trendier pieces in, or I can, throw in a backpack or a cooler, or, any number of things, because I can just take the same DTF. I don't have to set up different screens. I don't have to set up different ways to embroider it, or even try to spend a lot of time figuring out if I could hoop this or get it on a platen or anything. I can just grab it, and then it's a quick heat press and go. It makes it really easy to sell a ton of versatility in our products, because people are looking at the decoration, but they're looking at the product too, and making sure, comfort is so important right now. And just that, like, streetwear style and all of those things are just so important. So the more you can have that versatility and have that wide range of products, the more you're going to end up selling on those online stores.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's helping you stand out too, especially in your local community, what you're able to offer to your customers.
Totally. Because now we can just throw, even things that they're not even thinking about. Throw a Nike backpack in there, which is like a great price point for a decorator. And you can print it the exact same way as you can print the left front. And you just keep like moving on with your day. So right. Yeah, it really makes us look like all-stars when really we're doing it the more convenient way for us.
Right? Those are little secrets that the customer doesn't need to know.
Don't tell anyone else.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about, the importance of finding community, and I know you're doing that a lot through attending events, but we also know each other through Print Girl Mafia, which is a community for women in the apparel industry. If you're not on the Facebook group, I definitely urge you to do so, but it is female only. To be part of the Print Girl Mafia community as a whole, you can definitely be a male ally, but females only in the Facebook group. But Megan, can you talk about, the importance of finding community in the apparel space, maybe what a specific female, community looks like to you and why that's important, and really just, what it's like to be a woman in the industry.
Yeah.
You're an owner of a business as a female, your mom, your grandma, like you're third generation, which is really cool anyway.
Yeah. So I watched my mom, she would have this office that was so clearly, this is where the owner sits, it's glass walls and the whole works. And then it would be like the guy that was sitting, in like right up front by the door, people would assume he's the owner. And it's like, does that even make sense? Would you walk into any other business and assume that the person right at the front of the door is the one that's owning the business or the one in this glass office? And so I would see people time and time again just assume that she is anybody but the owner. And I think she kind of just was like, yeah, that's just the way that things are. That's just how it is. And she's a lot less like feminist rage than I am. She's just like, that's how it goes. And I was like, that's not okay. That's not how it should be. I've experienced it myself where I've had, countless amounts of times where people either just assume that my brother Ryan is the boss, or people assume, tons of screen printers I've had assume that they know more than me because they're a dude. Just there's a lot of like ego things there. I don't know. I've just had a lot of experiences. I've had clients try to intimidate me a lot because they were men and I'm a woman and they can, I don't know, try to make me cry or something. And it's just like, that's not how it should be. That's not like, we're in 2024 here. And so when I first found out about Print Girl Mafia, it was like such a breath of fresh air where it's like, okay, I can go into this Facebook group and I can ask a question and not get like some egotistical answer or like, oh, you idiot, why would you even ask a question like that? It was so refreshing. And then I went and Print Girl Mafia worked with Bella Canvas and brought everybody out to California to go through all of Bella Canvas's warehouses and their facilities and everything and learn a lot. And so then I got to sit there and talk to all of these women and become like besties with all of these women. And I feel like I've always been a person that's like, I don't know, I'm not really like girly. I'm not going to sit here and talk about my hair and my nails and all of that. That's like not who I am. I more resonate with guys. And then I realized going on this trip, like, oh, these are my girls. Like, I just didn't have the right girls to talk about stuff with, because these are all women that wanted to just share everything they're learning and ask a bunch of questions and didn't have to worry about, what somebody else was going to think or that they were going to be judged or thought that they were, less educated than somebody else. It was so refreshing. And it's just continued to be encouraging because now I go to these conferences and I'm like, oh, I know you're in Print Girl Mafia. And then we immediately can connect and bond and encourage each other. And I know that I've seen you specifically like advocate for women and for people of color and try to get them on stages or in panels or whatever where you're predominantly seeing white men. And it's just been really exciting to see, this small ragtag group of people suddenly start to like really evolve and say, no, we're here and we know what we're talking about and we are experts in our field and we can speak loudly and speak with authority. So I'm really excited to see where a lot of things are going with that. Just last week I had my financing manager, she's like, she really nerds out about Chipley. And so we hosted this whole like little mini Zoom call where it's like, let's pick your brains about all things Chipley. And we worked with the vice president of Chipley, who is a woman. And so it was just this like very empowering, like, you know, if people aren't going to give us seats at the table, we're just going to build a different table and we're going to create seats and we're going to help our businesses grow. And, you know, remove any of the sexism element and just learn from each other in a really, really healthy environment. So it's just exciting. Can you tell how nerdy I get about it? I'm just like, yay, girls.
I mean, I'm obviously right there with you. I think it's so important to be able to, in whatever industry you're in, see someone who looks like you.
Yeah.
See someone that you feel like you can connect to. You know, I told this story before and I won't like get into the super details of it, but when I started in the wide format space, you know, 11, 12 years ago, I went to a trade show and I didn't see anyone like me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel like there were any women in the space other than, unfortunately, what were deemed as like booth babes who like didn't know anything about the product, were just there for the male gaze. And I was just like, this is not it. But if, you know, little Adrienne could see like where the industry is today, she would be so amazed and so happy and obviously feel like there is that community because it has completely changed. PGM is, you know, huge advocate and reason for that because people are seeing like, oh, there's a crew here.
Yeah.
There are women showing up who are successful, educated, like powerhouses, and also really cool and down to earth and fun. Yeah. Like that's everything for me, you know, like that's what I want out of friendship and out of, you know, a group of people that I can connect to. And so to have that and have that grow in different ways, you know, I'm part of the Women in Print Alliance through Printing United, you know, part of Unite Together. You know, there are different organizations where you can meet women or meet people of color or anyone that really fits, you know, the box that you are in and want to learn from and grow within. You can find that now in the industry. And I really love that because yes, you know, most industries are male dominated spaces, but it's so great to see more women, you know, in leadership roles and, you know, speaking and having keynote opportunities. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm super, super thrilled. And I just love to, especially even here on this platform, have badass women like you, owners of print shops, come on and share. And, you know, I think there will come a time where we really won't have to talk about this part of it. But, you know, it is important, I think, to, you know, address these things. But, you know, at the end of the day, I look at you as just a business owner and a leader.
Right.
And
it's exciting.
That, I think, will come through too.
Yeah, I think it will be exciting the time where we realize we don't have to be like, what's it like to be a woman in print? Because like there's plenty of us and we can answer all of those questions and we can hear people on stage that look like us and sound like us already describing that stuff. So I definitely think there are a lot of strides going in that direction. And I'm really excited to see, you know, like if baby Adrienne 10 years ago didn't see anybody and now look at us, just imagine what 10 years from now is going to look like.
Exactly. I love that. I can't wait.
Right?
We'll definitely still be here 10 years from now. I don't think I could ever leave the print industry. I'm so stuck in it.
Yeah. Once you get snagged, you're set for life.
And you're already talking about the fourth generation at P&M Apparel. So what does that look like right now? I imagine that anyone in that generation is too young to maybe even be interning. But what is that? What are those conversations like?
So right now it just looks like, you know, Ryan has a son that's 5 and I've got a daughter that is 5 and a son that's 9. And so mostly it looks like these kids just kind of show up all the time. And, you know, the 5-year-olds are not doing a whole lot around here besides just being goofy and, you know, loving on all of my staff. But like my 9-year-old, it's like if things get busy, he's like helping me check inventory or he's catching behind the dryer, or, you know, he's already doing some stuff. And I don't know if that is going to be his destiny or not. I think something my mom really instilled upon us was she didn't want us to feel like we had to be we had to take over. Because when she took over P&M, it was kind of like her only option. She was newly divorced. She was a single mom with 3 kids. And so she was like kind of feeling stuck. And she didn't want us to feel like we didn't have a choice. And so she was really proud that we took it over, but wasn't pushing us in any way. So I don't think we want to do that for our kids either. It's like, if you don't want this business and if it ends at 3rd generation, then so be it. It would be cool if it went to 4th generation, but yeah, right now it's just a bunch of little kids kind of running around being silly mostly. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like in the future.
Well, we'll check in with you in 10 years.
Right?
And we'll see. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, this has been so fun and informative. And I love a full circle moment where we started talking about family generation business, and now we're wrapping up and talking about what that 4th generation may look like in the next decade or 2. So chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You can find P&M Apparel at pmapparel.com, as well as Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll catch you on the next episode of the DTF Printing Podcast. In the meantime, head to DTFprinting.com to discover new ways to grow your DTF print business. Thanks for listening.